We'd like to welcome you to the Class 4A Region Breakdown. This is the Friday main event. I'm Mike Molder. He's Lee Teat. We've covered classes 1 through 3, Lee. 3 videos each class. Hopefully everybody's been enjoying those videos.
I hope so. We put a lot of work in on that, man.
Yeah,
a lot of research.
A lot of research, and we appreciate Donovan Stewart. He helped us out with a lot of that research, Lee. He does those entire state region preview shows. That helps a lot as far as finding out the returning players. I mean, we watch a lot of huddle video and get on our favorite website, Coach T, and
right.
we do a lot of research, but Donovan is really valuable to us as far as getting some general information about the teams that we don't have access to, all the coaches like he does. And Lee, in this classification is 47 teams, 7 new coaches. And as we always do, we're gonna do this video. It's gonna be only classes, regions 1 through 4.
Right.
Class 4A will run through all those regions. Next video in this series of Class 4A videos will be regions 5 through 8 on the west side of the bracket, and then we'll conclude our 4A coverage with our Class 4A top 10. So, Lee, let's get things started here in Region 1. And kind of the granddaddy of Class 4A the last several years has been Greenville, and they're under new management. And we kind of suspected this last year, didn't we?
We did. Lost, obviously, Cade has moved on to the Army, playing for the Golden Knights.
Right.
And, I'm sure his dad wants to be able to attend those ball games and visit with him and kind of be a dad for a while.
Yeah.
But I think Coach Hammond's, been there 14 years as an assistant, so
right.
he's not unfamiliar with the program.
Knows the system.
No stranger, and I fully expect them to just pick up where they left off.
I do too, Lee. In addition to Cade, they lose Dorian Goddard, Cameron Height, Javon Gillespie. A lot of a big part of that offense last year is gone now. But like you mentioned, they've got a lot of kids coming back. Terry Grove. 239-pound, 6'4" tackle leads them up front. They've got some preseason All-State kids. They've got Ty Youngblood, the linebacker, running back. I think he's going to have a big year for them.
I think so.
They got a transfer. Actually, I think Ty Youngblood, Drew Gregg is a transfer from Catholic. Isn't that right?
Quarterback.
Is he going to? Will he step in for Cade? Have you heard anything? Is he expected to win the starting spot right off the gate, or is there somebody coming in that may take over?
Well, I think he'll probably compete right away for it. But the thing about Greenville this year, I think you probably see a little different dynamic from them because the guys they did lose was, Cade and Dorian and Cameron. That's a lot of skill.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Very high skill level. But the kids they got coming back are your blue-collar grinders, man. Youngblood, I was so impressed with him last year at linebacker.
Yeah.
And then Everhart's coming back to preseason All-Stater, a big guard.
Will Albright, another good-looking player we saw up there.
And then A.J. Greenway's a defensive tackle they got's about 285 coming back. And then they do have Jaden Pruitt coming back, who's a wide receiver. But may see a little different dynamic from Greenville this year than you saw in the past, because they have to fill those slots.
And we didn't even mention Chris Everhart. He's another preseason All-State, 305-pounder on the line. Anytime you got, this size, coming back as far as line goes, you got to like what you're seeing as far as opportunity for the skilled players to develop.
Yep. So I think they'll be fine.
I do too. Lee Elizabethton, they lost some pretty valuable kids as well. Carter Everett, their quarterback, I think he'd started there for 3 years. But Sean Whitten, he always has a great team, 106-41 in 12 years there at Elizabethton. They run that spread, and you and I got the chance to go down and watch Elizabethton and Greenville last year. I think that was the only game Greenville beat the competition, the in-region competition, 53 points a game on average, Lee. But that Elizabethton game was 35-20. It was, I guess, it may have been the only game all year that Greenville were it hadn't been determined who was going to win it by halftime. Somebody was actually still in the game in the second half against them. So Elizabethton always going to be a solid team. They've only got 4 starters back on both sides of the ball. They've got Terry Grove, a big tackle. It's 239, 6'4". Drew Gregg, I'm looking at the wrong lineup, dude. Punch me. Zach Hartley. I'm sorry. My fault. Zach Hartley is coming back for Elizabeth, and I didn't scroll my screen there, man.
Well, what I like about who is coming back for Elizabeth, and if you look, man, they got several sophomores and juniors coming back. Deuce Morton's a linebacker, a junior. Connor Johnson's a sophomore lineman. Parker Hughes, a DB, is a junior.
Right.
And then they also have some seniors sprinkled in there in the right spots. But how do you replace Carter Everett? It's going to be the question for Elizabethton this year.
And do you expect them? I know Anderson County's been their nemesis when they do reach postseason play. Do you think it'll go down to them going against Anderson County, or do they have a shot at knocking Greenville off in this region?
I don't see it. I really don't. I think Greenville's got their number right now.
Right.
That, ball bounce any way you want. And they have it now. Elizabethton will have them at home this year during the regular season.
Okay.
We went up and watched them at Greenville last year.
That's right.
So Elizabethton will get them at home this year during the regular season. But I think right now Greenville's still cream of the crop in Region 1.
And then you look at that Greenville non-region schedule, Lee. They got a really good Powell team coming in this year. They go to Daniel Boone. They go to Science Hill, always a good team. And then Austin East, a really good 3A team. So Greenville's going to be tested outside the region probably as much or more as they were last year, I think, this year.
I think so, too. Both these teams are at Science Hill this year, so that'll be, that'll tell a little bit.
A good comparison,
yeah,
won't it?
I think so.
And then I think both of them play Daniel Boone as well. They got Elizabeth's got William Blunt going to William Blunt. And then they have Cherokee. Lee, the third-place team in this region last year was Sullivan South. I think possibly Union County will contend with them this year for that third spot. I think that'll be a good battle for the third spot. Sullivan South, the Rebels, Justin Hilton, 8-4 last year, Lee. They got knocked out by Greenville in the second round. 7 starters back on offense, 6 on defense. Julian Reed at running back, good-looking football player.
Yes, sir. And then they got Camden Necessary as an offensive defensive lineman who's a preseason All-Stater coming back. I like the fact they got 7 and 6. 7 on offense, 6 returning on defensive side of the ball. Union County, Sullivan South, may be a flip-flop,
Yeah.
Good flip-flop places here in the region. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I had a tough time deciding who would take that third spot. Alonzo Creech is back at running back for Union County, good-looking ball player. And then Christian Bright at guard. You got Zach Pierce, another running back.
Right.
Alex Paget is another lineman. That's what I like. They got a pretty solid line coming back. And anytime, how you and I feel about that, if you're strong up front, that gives them skilled players time to develop, even if they're coming into starting fresh this coming season.
Well, and two, in the double wing, your lineman, it's crucial, because of the type of offense you run. They've got to get some reps in, and
right.
If you got some returners coming back, that makes that offense even more potent.
Looking on down that region, Lee, you got Granger, finished 5-5 last season, 2-4. Chad Tate, 29-34 in his 6 years there at Granger. The Grizzlies, I really don't know that there's any place for them to move up in the top 4 teams. They've got Cumberland Gap on the road, Pigeon Forge on the road, Scott County, Chucky Doak. So I think there's some opportunity for Granger to pick up some good non-region wins this year.
Yeah, they got Cumberland Gap, Pigeon Forge, and then Scott County, and then they go to Chucky Doak. So, yeah, they could pick up a few.
Yeah. And then Sullivan Central, the Cougars, 1-9 last year, 1-5 in region play. Their only win was over Sullivan East. They've got Preston Staubus, Joel Bird back, Jake Wise, Bryson Crabtree. They got 7 kids back on offense, 5 on defense. But, again, this region appears to me, anyway, to be pretty sad. It's going to be very similar, I think, to the last couple of years. So again, we mentioned Sullivan East. Mike Locke's team 1-9 also last year, did not win a region game. They've got 6 back on offense, 5 back on defense. They've got Dylan White back at quarterback, Sean Dalton at running back. So, they got Johnson County on the road, at home. They've got Volunteer on the road, Unicoi County. and then Sullivan North.
Sullivan North.
So Region 1, I think you and I agree it'll come down to Greenville and Elizabethton again this year. You got to give the edge to Greenville with what they have back. Be interested to see how Dan Hammond does jumping in for Kane Ballard. It's a tough act to follow there.
Very tough act to follow. But I think another thing too, man, Greenville is just such a great football town.
Oh, it's awesome. Man.
Unbelievable. And they're behind that team. And I like I said, I don't really see much let up.
That was one of the most enjoyable road trips we took last year. That was probably the fullest house we saw, I think. I mean, they were lined up, 6 deep on the fence out there. It was a great experience. We need to make another trip up there.
Sounds good.
Lee, let's move on down to Region 2, and Anderson County's been the team to beat there for a while. 33-point win margin over all their region opponents. Their closest region game last year was a 28-14 victory over Howard.
Right.
Davy Gillum is he's 88-40 in 10 years there, Lee. He's averaging right at 9 wins a season there. Of course, they did get knocked out by Greenville again in the quarterfinals. What's your thoughts on Anderson County this year?
Buddy, I think they're still going to be the one coming out of Region 2. I think they'll win that region. But, man, Stanton Martin, he was the real deal.
He was.
At quarterback.
Yeah.
Of course, they've lost him, and that's a lot of big shoes to fill right there. I think if Coach Gilliam gets quarterback spot squared away, I think he's got Cam Thomas back at wide receiver. Austin Elliott's back there at wide receiver, DB, and then he does have a preseason All-State O-lineman there in Stone Cummins. So if he can get a quarterback established, I think they'll have a good season.
Yeah, 5 starters back on both sides of the ball, Lee. Again, they've got a pretty tough non-region. They got a really tough non-region. And going to Powell, everybody thinks Powell's going to be the stuff this year, including us. And they've also got South Doyle on that schedule. They got a really good Clinton team on that schedule. So I think Anderson County is going to probably pick up their 6 region wins again this year, and then potentially pick up a couple of non-region wins and have another big year. What you like that?
I do.
I thought you were fixing to go against me on
that.
No,
I like it.
The Chattanooga Central, the Pounders. I love that name. The
Purple Pounders.
I love that. Kurt Jones, the head coach there, 5-6, Lee, in his first season there. He's also got 5 starters back on both sides of the ball. Hunter Jones at running back. Tracy Odom is a safety. And then Brandon Williams, a junior guard, 6'1", 309. Pretty good-sized kid.
Buddy, that's a hoss right there. 6'1", 309. That's a big old boy.
That's a big old boy right there.
That's right.
You don't want to try to move him around too much. Marcus Ray at linebacker, another kid that Coach Jones is going to expect to be one of the leaders on that team. I like Central. Of course, they beat Howard by 35 last year, which is so odd because Howard was the closest game to Anderson County, and then Chattanooga Central beat them much worse. So, I don't really totally. I try to read into these, scores, but it's hard to do sometimes.
It is
common opponents.
Right. Sometimes Friday nights are. Depending on home and away, how you travel, what kind of week the kids
certain
have.
Teams may just be bad matchups.
That's right. It could be bad matchups. One thing interesting about Chat Central this year is they got 9 games.
Yeah.
They're playing at Notre Dame, at Tyner, and then they have Baylor. That's their out of region competition.
I don't think they're going to pick up a 10th game this late in the ball game, are they?
I don't think so. And can you improve on a 5-6 record with those 3 in your out of region? That's going to be pretty tough.
That's going to be challenging, no doubt. Tyner, we in our 2A, we're real high on Tyner. That's a good-looking ball team, and despite the fact that Central's 2 classifications higher, you can't write that in as a win. No,
I wouldn't pencil it down.
No doubt. Howard, the Hustlin Tigers. Oh, that's another one I like, man. They got some cool names over in Region 2. The Hustling Tigers, 5-5, 4-2 in region play. Lee Teat, they've got a lot of kids back. They got 6 back on offense, 7 on defense. Eric Johnson, really good senior linebacker. I think he's one of the guys they're relying on a lot, along with Devontae Smith, the running back.
Right, and then they got Tremonte Brooks back too at tailback.
Right.
Be interesting. We'll know more about Howard. They square off against Stratford, which I think that's that'll be a good matchup for them. And then they go to Brainerd. So we'll know a little bit more about them, after these games here.
And they've got that Tyner team we just mentioned coming to them this year. They got a pretty tough schedule, no doubt, Lee. But I think they do as well potentially get to 7-3 maybe in the regular season. What's your thoughts?
So you liking them ahead of Chat Central?
Well,
in the region or about where they were?
I don't know. I mean, I know they beat them by 35 points, but that tells me there's something funny about that score, Lee. There's something we don't know.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how you can play Anderson County to within 14 and then get beat. Matter of fact, I think they were shut out by 35 points. Something about that score doesn't really make a lot of sense to me.
Right.
So I think they're better than that 35-point deficit. Chattanooga, they got more returners back. So I'm thinking they're going to challenge Central for that second spot. Yeah.
I agree.
Lee, East Hamilton is a team I'm really curious about.
Me too, buddy.
I think East Hamilton, they got a new head coach, a good friend of mine, Grant Reynolds, who was at Boyd Buchanan for several years. There's a fly, Lee. I'm fixing to kill him.
Don't land on me.
East Hamilton, they made a really good hire there. Grant Reynolds, and I'm friends with him on Facebook, Lee, and he's posting every day. This university's, is over here checking our kids out. So he's one of the best, I think, at promoting his kids, and he's getting them a lot of attention there at East Hamilton. And I think they make a run this year, and they could potentially get up into that second spot as well.
I agree because Coach Reynolds, in 3 years at Madison Academy down in Alabama, he was 30-10. So that's 10 win seasons he's averaging.
Right.
That's pretty good football down there.
Yeah, especially down in Bama.
Right. So I fully expect him to be much improved. He does have a preseason All-State, Aiden Holt, who's a senior coming back. And then he has Blaine Savage. But his linebacker core is the real deal. They're all seniors, so I think he can hang his hat on some defense. If he can get the offensive side figured out, I think they're going to be fine.
I agree with you. That's what I thought as well, that the defense would probably be the backbone of this team. If he can get his offensive scheme in place and get the kids to buy into the system,
right.
They're going to be a team you don't want to face there around week 7, 8, and 9.
I agree.
So we like East Hamilton at the 4, potentially 2 spot.
They could jump.
I mean, we're going to put them at 4 for now because we don't know, how long it's going to take Coach Reynolds to get everything in line and get everything gelling over there for the Hurricanes. But I like the direction of that program, and I like that hire a lot.
Well, one thing I like about East Hamilton that could possibly take them to the 2 spot is if you look at Chattanooga Central and Howard's out-of-region competition, overall record. If they split in the region play, then the overall record comes into play. East Hamilton may be able to knock one of them off.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to look. Saudi Daisy's going to be pretty good this year, Lee. Remember, they won the region last year over Catholic. Walker Valley, and I think they have the longest losing streak in Class 5A now. But they've got a new coach that came over. I think he had experience at Red Bank. Really excited. I know the kids are really excited about the coaching hire there. And then Red Bank, typically a pretty good team. So I might have to debunk your reasoning there because I don't see that East Hamilton schedule is no sleeper out of region.
I don't think it's a sleeper schedule, but I think it's a little bit less than Notre Dame, Tyner, Baylor.
It may be
Stratford, Tyner.
Yeah, might be. East Ridge lead the Pioneers. Tim James is 72-98 overall, 17-17. I think he took over for Tracy Malone when Tracy Malone left there.
He did.
I'm thinking 3-7 last year, 3-3 in region play. They've got 3 back on offense, 4 back on defense. Kiana Johnson, the wide receiver, senior, he's a kid they're looking to be a leader along with Jalen Boykin, the two-way player, linebacker, running back. What's your thoughts on East Ridge?
I like to see that Sequoia County game. They go to Sequoia and then to Bledsoe, and then they got Whitwood at home and also Signal Mountain. So, they got a fairly tough out-of-region competition. But I'd be interested to see that Sequoia game.
That's Coach Wattenbarger, a buddy of ours,
Right.
friend of the show. He'll be his second season there at Sequoia.
One thing concerns me about East Ridge, too, is they only got 3 returners on the offense.
Yeah, but I mean, you talk about a 3-7 team. That may be a good thing.
Could
may let some of the kids that with maybe a little more talent but a little less experience didn't play last year. Maybe they move into those starting roles and actually get better. So,
right.
Who knows? Sequoia, the Chiefs, they're under new management as well as Ryan Bollinger, who was a middle school coach at Concord Christian last year, Lee. He takes over for Bobby White. They were 5-5, 1-5 in region play. Got a lot of starters back, 6 on offense, 7 on defense. What's your thoughts on the Chiefs?
I don't think they can crack the top 4. I just don't see any room.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
I think they'll get better. I don't know about their record improving, but I think they'll get better as a club.
Mm-hmm.
They do have Gage Crabtree coming back there as a junior lineman, and then Justin Floyd, who's a senior wide out. I think the quarterback, they got several. We always talk about this, O-lineman coming back. Maybe
Right.
they can protect the quarterback and get the ball out to some of these wide outs, and they got senior leadership in the backfield. I think it'll be all right.
And the last team in that region, Lee, is Hickson, winless last year. Gary Murray is 0-19 in 2 years at Hickson. Tough row. What do you think about Hickson? They get off the winless streak. Do they pick up a win anywhere this year? They got Signal Mountain, Sequatchie County, Boyd Buchanan, and Saudi Daisy as non-region games. Potentially break the streak.
I don't know, man. That's pretty tough there.
Pretty tough. You're right.
I hope so. I hope so for Coach Murray. Kids need a win, and I'm sure he's doing everything in his power to get it. One good thing is they got 8 and 6 coming back. That's good.
Yeah.
But they got to start, learning how to win.
Right. Yeah, he was the offensive coordinator under Dan Duff there at Hickson, so he's been with them for a while, but just hadn't bore any fruit yet. So hopefully the Wildcats can at least get a win this year, Lee.
Right.
Break that string up. Moving down to Region 3, Lee, Stone Memorial, Derek Samber did a remarkable job in his first year, 9-2, taking over for our buddy Mark Wattenbarger, who moved over to Sequatchie County. They were knocked out by Marshall County 30-29. This is one of 4 sweeps for Region 3. I think it's 2 years in a row.
Right.
Region 4 swept Region 3. He doesn't have a lot of kids coming back this year, though. We're pretty much starting from scratch. 3 starters on offense, 5 on defense. What's your thought on the Panthers?
I like them. I like Coach Samber. I don't know that they repeat as the 1 this year. They'll be knocking at the door.
Yeah.
I think for the region title. I don't know if they will repeat. But Coach Samber is a very, very good coach. A really good coach. And I think at Stone Memorial, he's going to – I know they only got 3 coming back on offense and 5 on D, but I think he'll have some players out, plenty of depth. He's got Coalfield, CAK, Friendship Christian, so they ain't ducking anybody.
Right.
So we'll see. I think they'll be ready come playoff time.
Yeah. Cameron Dixon, the junior linebacker back, Mason Hurd back. They won all their region games last year, Lee, by a 30-point margin. The only team that played close to them was Livingston Academy. Right. They beat Livingston 34-28, Bruce Lamb's squad. So, I think they'll be in the mix. This is one of those regions, I think, top to bottom, or at least top 3 or 4, very balanced. I don't think there's a clear-cut favorite heading into the season here in Region 3. Look at the second-place team last season was Macon County. Kyle Shoulders, we're big fans of his. Of course, he was at RBS as a head coach, and he went to Oakland and coached with Coach Creasy, if you'll remember.
That's right.
So he's very well thought of in the coaching community. A lot of respect for him among his peers in the coaching fraternity. The Tigers, Lee, at 5-6 last year, 3-1. They were knocked out by Nolensville in the first round. He's got a pretty good amount of starters back.
He does. Got 6 on offense, 7 on D. Has a senior quarterback coming in who's coming in for Seth Carlisle. Ethan Jenkins at a running back spot. Isaac Belton at a tailback. I think he's got plenty of firepower, you know. But my thing with Region 3 is I'd like to see them compete a little better with Region 4 in the playoffs.
Yeah, me too. I mean,
because they do play tough football up in that area. I mean, it is a tough environment. They play tough football. They're just not having a lot of good luck against Region 4 when they hit the playoffs. But I think Coach Shoulders, Coach Sandberg, Coach Lamb, you know, I think they all realize this, and I think you'll see some improvement coming in.
Well, I'll tell you, Lee, I actually like Coach Lamb's Livingston Academy team to win this region this year. I think the Wildcats, they got 7 back on both sides of the ball. They got their eat up with preseason All-State. They got Cole Spears at offensive line. Wesley Smith is a wide receiver, preseason All-State. They got Will McDonald, the quarterback senior, returning, also a preseason All-State. So they got a lot of talent back. Got Westmoreland, which that should be a win for them. You're looking at a 2A team versus 4A team. It should be a win. Cookeville team that I think Jimmy Maynard's team may still be rebuilding a little bit. I think they're still pretty young. Upperman squad lost a lot of kids. Smith County's kind of struggling under new management, new coaching staff. But I know you like Smith County. White County, Lee, Sparta's just they've been terrible. They actually went independent this year. They're not even playing in a region schedule this year.
Right.
Yeah. So he's got a very good non-region game for us, building wins up.
I think so. I think out of his Westmoreland, Cookeville, Upperman, Smith, White County, and York, I think he'd get 3 of them.
Yeah.
You know, I think.
And then if he takes the region, you're looking at another 4 wins potentially if they do win the region. So, you know, this could be an 8-win team right here, I believe.
Could be.
So I like Livingston Academy in this region. DeKalb County, my buddy Steve Trapp, I think he's done well with what he's had. And you look at where that DeKalb County program was at 13 years ago when he took it over, Lee.
Yeah.
It was horrible, and he's hovering right around 500 for those 13 years. And anybody that's watched the Tigers play, you know, in the last 20 years or so would be, you know, tickled to death to have a 500 coach over there, given the history.
Right. Well, even in 4A, you know, we talk about this in the 1, 2, and 3 classifications, but even in 4A, sometimes you're limited to a class of kids that you know is coming through that you can hang your hat on this class.
Special.
They're special. You know, and then it may take 2 or 3 years, and then here will come another class. You know, I think Coach Trapp has been subject to that a little bit here lately, where he had several really good quarterbacks in a row, several really talented
Jennings
classes.
Comes to mind.
But I think, you know, he might be back at that now. He's got 9 and 8, 9 offense and 8 defensive guys coming back.
Right.
One kid to look out for is Evan Jones, tight end, defensive end, who's a junior. He's a good-sized young man, and I think if they can get him the ball and then they turn him loose on defense, he can make a difference.
And they've got a non-region schedule, Lee, that should provide them a couple of wins. I think they play at Warren County. They go to Upperman. They go to Watertown. They have Grundy County, Cannon County, Smith County all at home. So, you know, potentially 2 or 3 wins there, I think, in non-region action. And like you mentioned, 9 starters back on offense, 8 on defense. You got to feel good about the Tigers at least improving this year.
I do.
All right, Lee, moving on down. Last team in that region, Cumberland County, they're under new management, and I'm really, really anxious to see how this hire does, because I was a fan of Vance Blue there at Columbia. His kids, his boys, led them to a state title, and really, really good football minds. Eric Blue takes over,
right.
24 years old, takes over for Ken Johnson there at Cumberland County. The Jets 1-9 last year, 0-4 in region play, but I like the hire. I really like the hire.
I do too, and I tell you what, Coach Ballou, you know, if he can walk the halls at Cumberland County, Crossville, you know, if he can walk the halls and get some of those kids out, I think that's probably been the biggest downfall for them lately, is they can't get the players out.
Right.
You know, and him being 24 and young and motivated, I'm sure he relates to them.
Yep.
Maybe he can get those kids out and get them playing and improve on that 1-9 record.
So you like that hire too?
Yes, sir. Definitely.
Oh, that's. I think Cumberland County fans. I think the Jets. I think they're on the rise. That's. It may not come to fruit this year, Lee, but I think down the road, Eric Blue's going to prove out to be a good hire.
I think so.
All right, Lee, well, that's Region 3. Recapping, we feel that it's probably a 3-team race at the top: Livingston, Macon County, Stone. Hard to pick one. I think we're going to go with Livingston.
Right.
But I think that region at the top is pretty balanced.
I think so.
Wouldn't be surprised to see either Coach Samber or Coach Shoulders win that region. It's going to be that close, I think. Lee, Region 4, we got Maplewood winning this region last year, 12-2. They knocked Tullahoma off twice. I think they beat them 14-6 in Week 10, and then they got them by a 6-2 score in the quarterfinals. So those teams were pretty close together, I think, last year. What's your thoughts on Maplewood this year?
It's going to be a tough year, I think, for Coach Broom because he only returning one starter on each side of the ball. Last year, man, they were stacked. And don't get me wrong, they still got tons of athletes. Maplewood has got them everywhere.
Right.
But I think experience level, things like that are going to come into play this year. I don't think they repeat as region champs.
Okay.
I don't.
Well, I know I talked to Coach John Olive at the red and white game back in the spring, and this is going to probably surprise you a little bit, but the two teams that he named were Maplewood and Marshall County as teams. I take that back. Marshall County and Spring Hill was the first two teams he mentioned.
Right.
It kind of shocked me with Spring Hill because they didn't have a very good year last year. Now, I kind of threw it at him, what about Maplewood? And he said, well, I'll tell you what scares me about Maplewood. They had that senior night, Week 10, against us, and they wasn't but a couple of kids standing over there.
Right.
So, basically he's saying they were very young last year, So, and he said, anytime you're dealing with a Metro team, you don't know what you're going to get.
That's right.
So, I think Maplewood's going to be pretty good. I think they're going to contend for this region, but this region probably, as much as any region, I think in 4A, very balanced again this year.
Yes, sir.
Like we said earlier, Region 4 swept Region 3,
right.
and you mentioned Maplewood only got one back on both sides of the ball. They do have James Mason back, the fullback, really solid senior leader there on both sides of the ball.
Right.
Eric Johns is back as well. He's another kid they'll be looking at. David Sutherland, I think he's going to have a big year for him at running back.
Very good ball player.
So, Lee, we'll move on down. Like we said, Tullahoma was second in that region last year. They were right nipping at Maplewood's heels. Tullahoma beat Marshall County 2 times last year by a combined total, Lee, of 3 points. So we're looking at how close Maplewood was to Tullahoma, 3, 4, 5 points. And then you got Marshall County, who had a lot of injuries last year. Thomas Osteen's team did. I'm going to kill that darn fly. But what I was getting at is this region, we were saying top to bottom is very, very tight. Coach Olive has got one thing going for him this year. He's got a senior quarterback, a really good one back, Ben
right.
Fulton, 1,700 yards, 14 TDs last year. I like Ben Fulton back at quarterback.
I do too. Hopefully they can get him a tailback. That tailback they had last year, he was a load, at Tullahoma. He could run the football. So hopefully they'll get him a tailback.
Bryson Corn.
Right. But with Ben back there at the quarterback spot, he's took a lot of snaps. And he's we think Region 4 is one of the toughest regions in 4A top to bottom, and he's had a lot of experience going against that. I fully expect Tullahoma to be in the mix. But, man, I'm so glad Coach Olive last year, man, he got 10 wins and class act. We love him.
Remember, Lee, they went winless 2 years in a row just as recently as 3 years ago.
Yep. And man, he just
came on. Yeah, now they're right back in the thick of it. That goes to what you were saying. Every now and then you'll have that class to come through that's loaded with talent. The flip side of that, every now and then you'll come through and you don't get any players out of a class, and that's kind of where he was at that senior class 3 years ago.
Right.
They didn't have hardly any seniors that played on that team, and they suffered. They hurt there for 2 years.
Right.
But he's been able to make the climb back out of that, and like you said, 10-3 last year, Lee. I really like them. They open up at Shelbyville. It's a big game.
Mm-hmm.
Tullahoma don't like to lose to Shelbyville, and vice versa. That's going back to my high school days in the 80s. Big rivalry game there. That's Thursday night, 22nd. So I may try to make plans to be at that one.
That'd be a good one.
You're welcome to join me. The other non-region games for them is Coffee County. Franklin County is going to be a good matchup for them. That's another rivalry game. Lincoln County, and then they got Giles County,
right,
a former region competitor of theirs. So I like Tullahoma, but Lee, the team that I really like in this region, oddly enough, Coach Olive didn't mention, and I was kind of shocked, and I questioned him about that. And his reasoning was they lost so many, and they did. They've only got 3 back on offense and 5 on defense, but what they've got coming back really impresses me.
That's right.
And that's we're talking about Ryder Gallardi. I really like that kid at quarterback.
I do too, and I think, Paul Derrick over there in Nolensville, their facilities are top notch, unbelievable for a 4A school. Their facilities, and I think Coach Derrick will improve this year. Last year he was his first year there at 7-5, even though he was a DC under Will Hester at Ravenwood and Nolensville. I think as your first year as a head coach, I think he took a little lumps, but I think this year they're going to be much improved. I really do.
I do too, and I'm with you. We were there for the first game. Nolensville, I'm going to get him, Lee. We were there for the very first game. Nolensville played. Will Hester was there as head coach. I want to say it was against Fayetteville. Does that sound
That's
right?
Correct.
Nolensville and Fayetteville opened the stadium up there 3 years ago, and I was really impressed with those facilities. I think they were probably among the best we've been in.
This may be the last year for Nolensville at 4A, you think?
I think so. Matter of fact, Lee, I was surprised they didn't go to 5A this year.
So.
I really thought they would.
I think their enrollment is getting right on the edge.
Because they didn't even have a senior class that first year, remember?
Right.
And, I got to assume they're kicking the door down. What is it got to be, a 20% increase in a non-scheduled reclassification?
Yeah, they're getting close. They got to be getting close.
They got to be getting close. So, I expect this will be their last year in 4A. They move up to 5A next year, I would assume,
right.
like you, Lee. Tim Kutris he's already committed to Liberty, a really good wide receiver. You couple him, I think, with Gallardi, and, man, that's going to be one of the most explosive offensive teams in the region. My question is going to be how well they're going to be able to, control the other team on defense.
Yeah, that'll be the test for them, I think, defensively. I think offensively, like you said, they're going to be fine. They got 2 of their returning offensive linemen are seniors, 2 are juniors, but all of them played last year.
Mm-hmm.
But the defensive side of the ball will be
the question mark. Yeah. All right, well, let's move on down, Lee. The next team in that region, the fourth qualifier in region postseason play was Marshall County, and anybody that watches the Friday main event knows our thoughts on Thomas Osteen. I think he's one of the best young coaches in the game. 5-7 last year, and, man, just about everything that could have went wrong did go wrong last year. Had a senior quarterback coming back for his 3rd year to start, a really good quarterback. He up in transfers, I think, in July, 1st of July.
Mm-hmm.
And, who's going to recover from that? That's something you don't expect. And that happened to Marshall County. And then to top it off, they had a lot of kids expected to start. They got injured, so a pretty rough season for Thomas Osteen, but they still made a run to the second round despite all that.
They did, and, we knew after – what went down with the quarterback situation and some injuries early that, Coach Osteen, a testament to him is he came up with a different way to win.
He did. Yeah.
Took his team a different route, different style. Might not have been even what he was comfortable with, but he took his players that he had and he started getting down the stretch. He started pulling out some victories. This year, I fully expect him to be competing for the 3 spot or the 4. I think he's still 1 year away from getting back on top of the region. But, man, Javar Rucker's he's a load now. He can make a difference in any ball game he's in. So,
well, they like to run that pro spread over there, Lee. But like you said, given the quarterback situation and the injuries last year, one of them had to run a lot of option. But credit to him, he was able to make that change, mid-season and able to pull out some wins. But My understanding is they've done really well in the 7-on-7s
Right.
this year. Did real good over in Shelbyville. So I'm not so sure they take a big step back this year. I think they may be. Matter of fact, the top 4 teams in this region, Lee, I really don't even know who's going to win this region. I mean, it's that close.
You very well could be right. I think. Well, one thing that I do like about Marshall County is typically, man, they do get after you on defense.
Yeah.
The defense can keep them in games.
That's right.
And anytime you got that, you can generate some points by getting your playmakers the ball. And he's got several playmakers like we talked about. What's an interesting game for me with Marshall County is at Springfield.
Yeah. I didn't even. Yeah, they do play Springfield. You're right. That could be a. No, I was going to say it could. Both teams would have to get the state title for us to see that game, but that could be a 2 teams I think make a decent run in the playoffs.
Well, that'd be, like I said,
how you like that?
I just like to be at the ball game.
Yeah,
that'd be a good one to watch.
Yeah, it's at Springfield, and
right.
We've got some folks from Springfield that follow the show. Matter of fact, I've had a few of them contact me. Hey, when you gonna get the 4A show out?
Right.
Like we're working on it, guys. But we'll cover Springfield, Lee, in our next video. But it will be an interesting game. They've got Shelbyville. They've also got Lincoln County, Giles County as non-region games, and then Columbia Academy, team real close to them over there. That's a team that just recently made the move over to D2. So yeah, that could be a tester right there. I think
so.
Moving down, Lee, Spring Hill 1-9, 1-4. Ben Martin 1-9 in his first year there at Spring Hill. The Raiders, I think Bubba Johnson was a kid that you and we just couldn't understand why he wasn't being utilized last year. You remember that was our weekly gripe. I think Bubba had the same gripe. My understanding is Bubba transferred back to Page this year. So he had 2 1,000-plus yard seasons his freshman and sophomore year at Page. Didn't have a lot of carries at Spring Hill last year, and now he's gone back to Page. And I'm taking my ball and I'm going home.
Well, he was a load.
He was a load.
And anytime you got a kid like that's that caliber of player, you got to get him the ball or he's not going to be, satisfied with it. And I think it showed last year. Like you said, that was our question every week. Bubba carried the ball 4 times or 2 times or – you got to feed that kid, man.
He's one of them kids that's got to see the ball 20 times a game, and that's what he did the first 2 years he played.
But this team may be scary. Coach Olive.
He's high on them, man.
He mentioned that, and so he may, he's in the know.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
He's anxious to see how they do.
Well, that first year for Ben Martin was kind of a learning experience. He was a player for Spring Hill in that 86 title game, so – he may have learned a little bit last year, and they may come out with a little different philosophy this year.
Got a brutal out of region schedule.
Columbia, Summit, Lincoln County, Mount Juliet will be a tough one.
BGA,
yeah, you're right, Lee. I don't think he's going to pick up a lot of extra wins outside the region, so I don't know. I don't see them getting a lot better. Lawrence County, Lee. The last team in this region, Coach Marston's squad, they only averaged 7 points a game last season, Lee. They won the region title in 5A back in 2014. I don't think they won but 10 games since then, the last 4 years. So I don't know what's going on with the Wildcats. It just may be a talent drought is what I would assume.
Could very well be. Like who they got for out of region? Hickman County, Loretto, Warren County, Forest, Summertown. They've got some
wins scheduled in there.
They got some winnable ball games in there scheduled in. Maybe that'll try to help them get some confidence built up. Got several seniors coming back, 6 on offense, 5 on defense. You got to like that. But where do they move up, man? The top 5, 4 of this region is brutal.
Potentially leapfrog Spring Hill is the only thing I say. I think the same 4 teams that represented Region 4 last year will be doing it again this year.
And like you said, it could be any of those 4 sitting at the top, depending on how the ball bounces. And some of these teams are matchup problems for one and not the other. So it's an interesting region.
Well, I think we're going to go, and you may disagree, but I'm going to go Nolensville. And I'm going to go Maplewood and Tullahoma fighting for that second spot and third spot in Marshall County. only because he doesn't have a lot of offense back. But knowing Thomas Osteen, they're going to be in every game. And and I really hate to even pick an order in this region because I have no clue. I think it could go. You could flip this region any way you want to, but those 4 will be there. Nobody knows the order.
That's right.
So, all right, Lee. Well, this is our Class 4A Part 1 video, Regions 1 through 4. We hope you guys have enjoyed our region breakdown for the 1 through 4 regions, and we will continue this series of videos. Next up, we'll have Regions 5 through 8 in Class 4A, and then, of course, we'll follow that with our 4A Top 10. So this has been a Friday Main Event production. Of course, we want to thank Coach T.
Correct.
Jim Thompson at CoachT.com. He's signed on with Lee and I again this year. We are the only program you'll see him back support on Coach T, and that says a lot to me anyway. I mean, it makes me feel like we're at least doing the right thing, and we're putting our heart and soul into it. Whether it's any good or not, we're giving it an effort.
Not too bad for 2 old country boys.
That's right. But again, we hope you enjoy the content, and we appreciate Dom and Stewart. All the information he provides. Dom's a good friend of ours. You'll probably see him on the show at some point. He frequently jumps on with us. Good dude. He's at tnsports.com. Is that right?
Tennessee High School.
Tennessee High
School Football.com.
So, okay, I got it tabbed. I got the link on my website. My memory's not too good, Lee, but you can go to FridayMainEvent.com and click on our links tab, and you can find a link to them. So please do so. Donovan does good work.
Right. I also appreciate this week. Our first 3 classifications we put out. We got some good feedback.
We did.
From some coaches and from some fans, and hey, we enjoy the feedback. Keep it coming, and
hit that subscribe button,
That's
Lee.
Right.
Hit that subscribe button, and hit the like button, and that makes Lee and I know that somebody's appreciating what we're doing anyway.
That's right.
All right, for Mike Molder and Lee Teat, this has been the Friday Main Event. We hope you guys will catch us on the next video coming up.